Let's move on to the next paper, FCR 2019-27. This is the recommendation of the EC 26 to create one permanent post of principal government engineer and making permanent of one government engineer supernumerary post in the works branch of the Development Bureau to lead the new project strategy and government office for implementing strategic initiatives enhancing capabilities in cost surveillance and project governance. Some members suggested that this be subject to separate voting, and this is agreeable to the administration, so we're going to proceed like that. We have with us Mr. Lam Sai-hong, Permanent Secretary for Development, and Mr. John Kwong, Principal Government Engineer. Mr. Pt5, 5 minutes. Chairman, thank you. I've read the paper, and I know that the PCMO is trying to achieve savings for us. This morning, when we discussed the Wang Chao site formation funding, the administration showed us that costs could be saving not through the PCMO. The way they do it is to resort to OVERUP. That's the company notorious for getting hold of other people's information. They got the figure of $2.4 billion for 4,000 units, and each unit will be costing us $600,000 in terms of infrastructure, and this is exceedingly expensive. These $2.4 billion were presented to the Housing Panel and the PWSC and a Q3 last year. When it came to the tendering exercise, the return price tag was lower than $2.4 billion. So this morning, when we endorsed the funding, it ended up being $1.8 billion. It dropped from $2.4 billion to $1.8 billion, not because of the PCMO. It's just that the administration pitched the level exceedingly high, and the bidders were being honest, and they were submitting the market rate, and were putting a reasonable level of rate, and they help make some savings for the people of Hong Kong, and ended up being $1.8 billion. My question then is, now how is it possible that PCMO can achieve saving for us? The THB officials mentioned Wang Chao being in this category, the Sha-Lang Columbarium and Prince of Wales Hospital, Northern Hospital, and the Kowloon Bay MTR connecting pedestrian footbridge. The government overestimated the bid, and they ended up with a lower bid. So I'd like to put this to administration: which way can we achieve more? Mr. Lam, it's always been our practice to call for tender, and at the end of the day, we have to accept the market bidding. When the bidder puts in the bid, he would have some ideas in mind about the market situation, and he would also exercise some judgment as to the commercial considerations, and also issues like the method of construction that they can employ, and therefore they can be more aggressive in the bidding. So the bidding price represents the market value. As a works department ourselves, when we project the price, we would have regard to the level of bids historically, and we reflect the bidding price in our projection. So if we can set up the PSGO, the Project Strategy and Governance Office, we're going to have a benchmark system regarding the projection of funding. For each and every project, we're going to have a benchmark mechanism. Mr. G, can you explain why for Wang Chao project and other projects you had such a high bidding, high price, projected price, and we ended up with a lower price? Can you explain the situation, Mr. Lam? Well, we carry out the projection.
Hi.
The relevant department decided on the estimate, and the contractor would have an idea whether they would have some useful materials or different kind of considerations before they put in the bid. Thank you. Next, Tony J, please. Thank you, Chairman. Because there are a number of major infrastructural works projects starting soon, and I think the government really has to keep a closer eye in order to make sure that there will not be cost overrun, and there would be public money would be well spent. So I support setting up of the PSGO. And I know that in the commercial sector, when there are major works or major projects going to start, they're going to engage consultants to monitor the costs. In addition to cost, well, actually, the cost will be affected by a number of factors. In different stages, the market situation may be different. Prices of materials might vary, and also the design may affect the cost. The choice of materials, and also the division of labor, etc., will affect the duration of the project and also the costs of the project. So in setting up a specific office to look into this, I agree to that. I think it is necessary. And now this PSGO has even more responsibilities. That is, they have to look at the strategies, and in addition to cost saving and cost control, etc. Well, there might be some projects that are not no frills project. It might be very expensive, so I think that we should have experts and consultants in this office, PSGO, that is to upgrade PCMO into PSGO in order to keep a closer eye on the various major works projects. And I think the government should explain more clearly why this is necessary. I know that in the past, PCMO have done a good job in keeping an eye on the costs of the various government major projects, and there were some cost savings made. So this is very important that you have to tell the public that this office would be necessary. But then you have to add people. That is, there is a new D3 position, and also the existing D2 post would be upgraded in the new office of PSGO. Well, because one is the principal government engineer, the other is a government engineer. They are both engineers. Well, I think we have to look for capable people, people who are competent in carrying out this task. So these people do not necessarily have to be engineers. As long as they are capable in monitoring the cost and also supervising the projects, I think even if they are not engineers, that would be okay. I think they should be multidisciplinary people. Well, it should be merit-based. Well, I think there's no need for us to designate that these two positions must be filled by professional engineers. I think as long as the people or the candidates are competent and they show that they have the abilities, then they should be considered. And perhaps you should explain a little bit more why these two positions have to be filled by engineers. Well, for the new office, the PSGO, it has to monitor the strategic developments and also the progress of major projects. So we need people who are competent in these areas. They must be experienced in managing various major works projects. For instance, projects relating to tunnel, drainages, etc. The candidates must have ample experience and also in project design, management of projects, site supervision, etc. Also, the person has to oversee the works of multidisciplinary colleagues. So in the government structure, we think that engineers would be more suitable to take up these two posts that we've proposed. Well, Chairman, I'm not saying that engineers are not good enough. I'm just asking why we have to specify that they must be engineers. Why don't you just state that these persons should be multidisciplinary and it's okay that eventually they turn up to be engineers? Well, Chairman, I think the previous question is a very valid one. In the paper, paragraph 35, it states that the PSGO would be a multidisciplinary office, and in the team there will be engineers and also seven different professional people, including builders, quantity surveyors, etc. So I think the government should explain more clearly why these two posts must be filled by engineers. I think you have not answered Mr. Tony Jay's question. Permanent Secretary. Yes, just now I've already mentioned that the PSGO will have to consider different strategies in carrying out government major works projects and also enhance project delivery capability so as to uplift the performance of public works projects and also enhance cost effectiveness. So the people in charge of PSGO must be very experienced in these aspects. The project portfolios of the works branch is very diversified. We have projects relating to waterworks, drainage, tunnels, etc. So the persons in charge of PSGO should have ample experience in managing these major projects, especially major infrastructural projects. Well, they should be well versed in not just the design of the projects, but also maintenance, site supervision, and so forth. Well, that is the reason why we find that people with an engineering background would be more suitable to take up these two posts. Thank you, Chairman. Well, Chairman, I'd like to follow up. Well, the PSGO has to, of course, make sure that public money are well spent. But you mentioned that there are over $100 billion cost of public works projects, and now you are saying that two permanent posts should be established. But I wonder how these two persons can oversee that many public works projects in the coming years. So does it mean that you have to, or this person will have to look at the projects at the initial stage, or in the design stage, or in the drafting stage? What I'm worried is that there might be overlapping or redundancy in the responsibilities of the two people. So I think the public project management, they should be very strong in public projects management. If you do not have relevant training to the existing staff, then there is no use just hiring one or two persons to oversee so many public works projects in your in the works branch. Thank you, Chair. Dr. Wang is right, is correct. Well, after having these two persons, the PSGO will be able to be greatly strengthened in its capability. Because at present, the PCMO, because of staff restraint, we can only monitor the cost of various projects, but we can only do it at the later stage of the projects. So if the PCMO can be upgraded into PSGO and more people can be recruited, then in the PSGO, it will be able to monitor the projects at an earlier stage, even starting from the design stage. And we will also enhance our capability in moving forward major scale projects. We will also provide training to our existing staff in the Public Works Department, especially in project management, so that they will be able to enhance their ability and will be trained to oversee major scale projects, because the projects nowadays are more complex, and we hope that we'll be able to upskill our existing staff. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to seek clarification. Is this a double vetting process? That is, the public service team will do the design, and then the office will vet the costing one more time before coming to the LegCo to apply for funding. Is that a double vetting? Thank you, Chairman. Anything over $30 million will be vetted by the PSGO. That is, the PSGO will vet the cost estimate of the projects first before submitting it to the LegCo for funding application. That's true. Chairman, for these positions, it is in the 2018 policy address, it was stated that the PCMO will have to be upgraded into PSGO so that project delivery capability can be enhanced. So, well, if we can have more cost saving after upgrading the office, of course, I would support that. However, for these two new positions, the annual salary would be over $5 million. So for the paper, it is quite dated. It was passed by the establishment subcommittee in March 2019, and the position at first were to be opened in 2019. However, now it is 2020, it's already mid-March. So in the past year, the performance of the PCMO, what was the performance of the PCMO? Do we have any update on it? That is, my question is, what is the difference between having these two new positions and not having these two new positions? So in the past year, you did not have the new posts, did not have people to fill the two new posts, right? So what was the performance of the PCMO in the past year?
This morning, when we discussed the Wangchao project, we achieved savings not because of the PCMO. It was cheaper because of the market forces. During the panel discussion, I did put a question myself. Paragraph 5 of the paper says that the PCMO has achieved cost savings of $27 billion after scrutinizing 130 projects. So this is good value for money. So for these 130 projects, what are they? How can we achieve the savings in these 130 projects? The administration told us that because of all the intertwining factors, they cannot really explain to us how the savings could be achieved. So how do you compute the $27 billion saving? You cannot quantify the effectiveness of the PCMO. It would be hard for us to judge whether it is worth creating these two posts, whether we're going to get the money's worth. I cannot judge whether the PCMO has achieved any savings. Maybe the savings were achieved because of the market condition. So how can you convince us that we're going to get the money's worth? Mr. Lam, in the paper, we mentioned 2017, end of that year, the results of our work. Now for these $27 billion savings, when a project is upgraded to category A, we would scrutinize the projects to see whether the project team or how the project team arrives at the projection. All along, the PCMO has been adopting the principle of fitness for purpose and no frills. So when we discuss with the project team, we would discuss with them whether there are any rooms for changing the design, and whether there are any changes that can be made to the construction process. And if we can make some changes, we can achieve some savings. As I said, with the establishment of the Project Strategy and Governance Office, say, for instance, we are creating a culture, a no-frills culture. And everybody would be on the same page regarding the design, and there may not be a lot of room for achieving savings. But if we can cultivate a no-frills culture in the works department, in the teams, in the works department, that's very much an achievement. Mr. Ray Chen, what about my first question? Paragraph 5 mentions 130 projects. with an aggregate estimated cost of $260 billion, and there was a saving of $27 billion. That's the result for the previous year. Do you have the latest figures? Secretary, I don't have the figure now. I can supplement that. Ms. Tanya Chen, I'm not a member of the ESC, but from the paper, it seems to me that things are overtaken by events. Paragraph 5 of the paper, I hope that you will bring us up to date, because we are talking about the reply CB 21347, bracket 01, dated 27th of November 2018. I hope that the administration will bring us up to date about the latest results. For projects that have been completed, I'm wondering whether the administration can let us know what the PCMO has done and what savings have been achieved as a result. Chairman, also for the PCMO, how effective it is going to be. That you mentioned the principle of fitness for purpose and no frills. For the WKCDA, I am wondering whether you are going to be offering any assistance to them. Second, how do you scrutinize the cost? SCL, Sha Tin Central Link, if you recall, the Hong Kong extension, the reports show that some of them are over-designed. That led to excessive use of materials. Let's say instead of 2 meters of concrete, they use 3 meters, and that would add to the cost. The cost will balloon. In 2018, 2019, you have presented us some papers regarding the Sha Tin Central Line. You have the monitoring and verification consultant, and how you go about doing it under the entrustment agreements. We've seen so many incidents with regard to the SCL. How do you view the PSGO? What function can be performed by this PSGO? Secretary. Chairman, for the WKCD projects, in answer to Madam Wong, I said that we look at the threshold of $13 billion. Anything beyond $30 million would be incorporated into the PSGO portfolio. So the WKCD project also, that is funded by the government, but you are entrusting the project to the WKCD. I am concerned about the overpriced footbridge. Each meter you walk would cost you $5 billion. I mean, that's excessively priced footbridge. Secretary, for the railway, we said before that for the XRL and SCL, they were constructed under the service concession agreement, and they had the monitoring and verification consultant, and that kind of work would fall within the portfolio of the consultant. The member is correct. One of our remits, one of the areas of our remit, is to look at the cost effectiveness, like the design criteria. Should we scrutinize the design criteria? There must be certain criteria in terms of design. It may be the UK standard or European standard or other international standards. We cannot bend the standards, but there may be a possibility that the standards may be a bit out of date. So this PSGO will scrutinize all these standards. We may commission or retain some consultants to see whether there are any standards that are outdated that are still on the record, and that would add to the cost. So it is within the remit of the PSGO to scrutinize the engineering requirements. Senator Chen, I'm interested in this. I'd like to pursue the matter, Chairman. So you have different requirements of different projects. So you will look at the design standards to ascertain whether they are outdated for individual projects. Let's say for this project, the standards are outdated, and then for upcoming projects, you will revise the standards, and that work will be carried forward to the future projects. Is that the case, Mr. Lam? Chairman, we adopt a holistic approach. Concrete, steel, materials, we have certain standards. We will revisit the relevant standards. Some standards may be put in place 10, 20 years ago, and they may not be applicable today, but it's still there in the book. So we would coordinate certain reviews, and the exercise will not be conducted by the PSGO or by themselves. They will get different departments to scrutinize the different standards themselves. Turn up the mic for Ms. Chen, please. So you will not change the standard for a particular project. You will review the standards and you will make adjustment in a systemic manner, right? Mr. Wichiwai, 5 minutes. Chairman, the PCMO strikes me as very effective because it looks at the overspends for capital works, and then they would come up with ways to suppress the spending, and this has been effective. Public works go up in cost, maybe because of the market situation, or maybe because of over-design, or maybe because of the standards that you adopt in the process. I feel that things will not change every single day. In theory, the PCMO would put in place certain protocol for project management, and that would become part of the control mechanism. Like the Secretary said, if you have the principle of no frills, then you would then try to apply this no frills principle in the day-to-day work, and that would become the protocol for your work. With this culture, once they're done with a certain portion of the work, they will move on to the next, and things will not be changing all the time. So do you feel that for public works projects, you're going to be making a lot of changes, and therefore this PSGO, Project Strategy and Governance Office, will have to be in place on a long-term basis. It's going to be there for the long haul. There are many works departments that they have to update their standards, and what you have to do is to have the PSGO vetting the processes. If the standards are outdated, maybe for 10 years, you have to bring them up to date. And then going forward, you will be asking the departments to review the standards and update them every 5 years and file a report to you. Why do you have to make it a permanent office? With a permanent office in place, what is the relationship between the PSGO and the Works Department? Is it the case that the PSGO will be vetting the project proposals arising from the departments? If it is sitting there in judgment of the project, how is it related to the project proponent? So that it seems to me that there are two supervisors existing in parallel. existing permanently. As I said, we need to carry out strategic measures, and we need to enhance the cost management. Projects over $30 million, so we have to scrutinize them. The PCMO was set up in 2016, and we could only scrutinize the projects at a pretty late stage. By the time a project is about to be upgraded to Category A, we may have missed the chances. If we can scrutinize at the early stage, will make a difference. Chairman, if I beg your pardon.
Well, that is a matter of direction. That is whether the government would allow civil servants to over-design various projects, or there is a guiding principle or some guidelines in making the designs. If there are guidelines in place, then the various departments should be able to design their projects, and that should be the foundation of their blueprint. And if that is the case, why do you need a kind of strategic intervention? Does it mean that some people are not following your guidelines? Thank you, Chairman. The office is working very closely with various departments, and we have a division of labor for daily management of the projects. And for design, these will be the responsibilities of the Public Works Department. For our office, we do high-level vetting of the projects. In addition to vetting the cost estimates, we would also, because Public Works projects are very diversified now, we have different kinds of construction contracts, and it has evolved to different kinds, and there will be early intervention of the contractors. So things are changing, and that's why we need this office to put in place various guidelines in order to work according to the changes of time. Actually, in the UK and also Singapore, they have relevant similar office to oversee this kind of works. Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Alvin Young. Chairman, I'd like to really hope that the Secretary would enlighten me, because I'm not an expert in this area. According to the paper, it says that since the establishment of the PCMO, there is a cost saving of $27 billion achieved. Well, of course, it doesn't mean that every future project will have a cost saving of $1 billion. Of course not. But I'd like to know whether there are KPIs for PCMO, or is it not realistic to ask for KPIs? Thank you, Chairman. For KPIs, yes, we have thought about it. We have to first know or set down or decide on the responsibilities and the portfolio of the PCMO. And we have decided that it should monitor construction cost and also achieve enhanced project delivery capability and cost effectiveness. And it would be a multi-pronged approach, and with a view to enhancing the project delivery capability of the various departments and offices. We also try to identify KPIs for the office. For instance, we've thought of whether we should set the guideline of less than 5% of all public work projects should have cost overrun, or should we set it at 0? But then we find that this is not realistic. Because for KPIs, it is a kind of measure to quantify or to gauge the performance of the office. sometimes for cost overrun of projects, there might be different causes for that, and it might not be the sole responsibility of the Public Works Department. So if we say that as long as the project is overrun, then it would be the responsibility of the office. Then it is not fair, because sometimes the project may last for 10 years, and there might be factors at the beginning that would cause overrun of the project. So after thinking it out, we find that the KPIs setting like this would not be realistic. So we thought that we should focus on enhancing our colleagues' project delivery capability. Chairman, I'd like to thank the Secretary for giving me such a detailed explanation. I'm not insisting that there should be KPIs for this office. I understand and appreciate the difficulties of the work of this office. And this leads me to my second question. For this PCMO, the role of the PCMO is quite similar to that of the LegCo. That is, it has to ensure that the public works projects will not have cost overrun. So I'd like to know whether the PCMO can, well, after a certain period of time, compile a kind of report stating the various public works projects and the project or the cost overrun situation, and also the cost savings. And this is a way to show the work of the PCMO. For instance, if in 2016 about 10% cost savings have been achieved, I think this is very good. But we don't know how it has been made possible. So I wonder if the Secretary would think my suggestion a valid one. Yes, thank you, Chairman. We would be willing to do that. Yes, for instance, on a yearly basis, we could compile a report to the LegCo stating the projects that we have done and how much cost savings have been achieved, etc. Thank you, Chairman. I still have some time, so I'd like to go on. For the PCMO and also the relationship between this office with the consultants of the various projects. For instance, there would be consultants involving in projects at a very early stage. So I'd like to know who would have the last say, the PCMO or the consultant of the project. Well, for the consultants, it's the Public Works Department that would engage them. And for PCMO, we work mainly on cost savings. We like to monitor the cost savings measures, and with the PCMO upgraded into PSGO, we hope that we'll be able to have early intervention. It will not be micromanagement, though. We will have a high-level kind of vetting and monitoring of the project. We would see how the project is carried out, and also variation orders of the project. We would also see whether these variations are reasonable. We hope that we have involvement from the start of the project, so we will be involved in the entire process, and we'll be able to provide timely advice. Of course, at the end of the day, we will talk with the department and also the consultants of the projects. Dr. Fernando Cheng, Chairman, for the overrun and also delay of public works projects, this has been very common and it's really serious. And now that the government says that the PCMO is to be upgraded into PSGO, well, the PCMO, from the paper, it seems that since its establishment, it has been performing very, very well. So a cost saving of $27 billion have been achieved. So, well, this is really great. I'd like to know how this cost saving of $27 billion have been made possible. I think the Secretary has not addressed this question. If you cannot answer it right away, perhaps you could provide us with a paper after the meeting providing more detailed information. For instance, how the cost savings are made, what is the breakdown of the $27 billion, because I know that the cost is very complex of these because the projects are very complicated public works project. I'm not an expert in this area, but as far as I understand it, I know that the government, in carrying out public works project, you would engage consultancy firms, and you would also have your own department or team of experts following through the projects. I know that there are engineers and different professional people under the Development Bureau, and you would also engage consultants for the project. And sometimes the consultancy firm would commission more individual consultants in different area. So there are different layers of monitoring and supervision and design and construction, etc. Well, when the construction stage starts, perhaps there would be a big contractor involved, and there would be subcontractors as well, and there would be quantity surveyors, and they would perhaps engage consultants and contractors to carry out the works. So at the end of the day, of course, to the level of the workers, their wages would be very minimum. So it is, of course, very complex to monitor or control costs. If we have to ensure that the projects will not have cost overrun and will not be delayed, of course, we need expertise, and this is not a simple feat. But my question is that if PCMO is to be upgraded into PSGO, will the work be redundant, or will there be overlapping of responsibilities? As I mentioned before, this is a very complex issue to control cost of public works projects. So is the answer so simple, that is, after upgrading the PCMO, cost savings could be achieved? Well, in the paper, it says that the PCMO has achieved a cost savings of $27 billion. But is it really your effort, the effort of PCMO alone? As Mr. Jiao mentioned, it was because the cost estimate was pitched at a very high level. So after the bids were received, the tender prices were actually much lower, and so the cost savings seems to have been achieved because of that. So could you perhaps tell us directly how PCMO in the past achieved cost savings? That is, after scrutinizing 130 projects, there is a cost savings of $27 billion. Can you show us that it is because of the effort of PCMO that these cost achievement has been made possible, instead of because of other measures? Or perhaps cost savings was only possible because there were unreasonably high estimate at the beginning. Well, I'm just worried that this is not a realistic picture. A lot of things have been blown up, perhaps. The paper says that there would be a kind of elite academy or training, and there were world class and leaders training, etc. These are all very high level description. What's saying that this is world level, world class offers or world class performance? I don't think this is realistic. This is exaggerating, and that's what makes me very worried. Could you perhaps provide us with another paper showing us how cost savings are done? Thank you, Chairman. Well, the paper was up to the end of 2018. So as agreed before, we will provide a further paper showing the works of the PCMO since the end of 2018 up to the end of 2019. We will perhaps elaborate on the various points pointed by the members, pointed out by the members. When the PCMO is scrutinizing the projects, we would not just say that things should be scrapped or in order to save costs. We are actually involving with the design and also talking with them and see how costs could be saved and how through the changes in design or selection of different materials, etc. So it's not just cutting down the cost bluntly. Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Claudia Mo, 5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Now with the coronavirus, not just in Hong Kong but also throughout the world, as you can see, the stock prices are tumbling, not just in Hong Kong but also throughout the world. I think, well, against this backdrop, the government should streamline its structure, and also because economy is facing some headwinds. But then the paper says that the PCMO has achieved a cost saving of $27 billion. But how? Cost saving of what? So there is no details. So I'd like to have more details. A lot of members have already asked this question, but then I think the Secretary has not answered us. How this cost saving of $27 billion was made?
Well, it's just like me asking you to lend me $10. You said I've only got $7, and you turn around and said you owe me $3. You owe me $3. This is warped logic. You said you find it difficult to create any KPIs. I find it a little bewildering. Will this PSGO be reviewing the projects that have already started, like the Shorten Central Link? They are coming back for additional supplementary funding of billions of dollars. And for the projects, we tend to have the contingency of 10%. With this PSGO, can we save up on the contingency fee instead of the standardized 10%? Can we have a lower percentage, like that 8%, 5%? Permanent Secretary. Chairman, I defer to my colleagues to cite some examples regarding paragraph 5. As to the contingency, we do have the contingency for each and every project because there can be some unforeseeable scenario that can be anticipated at the time the contract is entered into. So this contingency would be necessary. We do have to set aside a certain sum of money to handle the unforeseen circumstances. So perhaps I defer to my colleague who will be citing you some examples pertaining to paragraph 5. Yes, Mr. John Kwong, Chairman. Like the Permanent Secretary said, the savings are not savings on the tender price. It's just that we are optimizing the design together with the departments. One of the examples is the extension at the Queen Mary Hospital at Block K near the rock slope. They are creating a spiral there. We look at the design and we figured that the excavation work would be exceedingly costly, so we suggested that the position be shifted a little bit. The plant room and mechanical facilities would be moved a little bit further away. We got the support of the Town Planning Board. That achieved a savings of a few hundreds of millions of dollars. That's an example to show that we would be working in collaboration with the project team. Ms. Claudia Mo, what about the projects that already got underway, like the Shantin Central Link? The budget has ballooned to really extraordinary level. Are you going to give up on that? Chairman, funding is going to be sought for the APE increase. We've looked at the figures. We feel that the funding sought is a reasonable amount. Mr. Jerry, 5 minutes. Chairman, thank you. If I may put a question here. For this PCMO, it is in existence at the Project Cost Management Office. You are trying to upgrade the office. What about the, I'm not sure how you call the top official. Will the head of the PCMO be filling the post, the top post at the PSGO? Right, the PSGO is there, but because of the manpower, we can only achieve a part of the function. I'm not with you. Say again, please. It can only fulfill part of the function. I'm not talking about the function. I'm asking you whether the top official, the person in charge of the PCMO, will be in charge of the PSGO. Well, if the posts can be created, then we will be making the deployment. Will the head of the PCMO, or will someone from the PCMO be promoted to head the PSGO? We haven't quite decided yet. Would there be an open recruitment? No, Chairman, we will look at the situation. We have a senior engineer in the post, and some of the colleagues are doubling up in the post. Other than the 2 posts being created, will the establishment be larger? Yes, for the non-directorate staff, we also added a certain manpower. How big is the increase? I defer to my colleague. Chairman, thank you. The PCMO, there are 6 non-directorate staff. The number will be increased by 12, and that's for the non-directorate staff members. Mr. Tam, I'm asking this because when I'm reading the paper, it seems to me, paragraph 15, you said that the PSGO will provide high-level training for major project leaders. Now, my thinking is, if you don't have the experience in controlling cost, then how are you in a position to offer any training? The engineers in the government may not be in a position to do this when they're filling the post. So normally, I would imagine that you would promote someone from the PCMO. If you just deploy an engineer from elsewhere into the PSGO, will he be sufficiently skilled to take up the job of training? So the personal expertise would be so important. You have 1 + 6 here in terms of staff complement. Now, whether you promote them from the PCMO, they would be in a position to do this. Let's say you have 6 at the moment, you're going to have 12, and you can add the same complement to the PCMO, and they can still do the same thing without having to upgrade the office. Is that right? Permanent Secretary? I don't think I can subscribe to this idea. For the creation of these 2 directorate posts, they need to have more comprehensive experience and expertise in mega projects, Mr. Tam. The fact that they can do a good job in management, now if the departments can do a good job, then you don't need to have the PCMO or the PSGO. It's just because you think that there is room for improvement, and the PCMO can fulfill the function of offering some assistance. If you deploy someone who is not skilled enough in this area, then it doesn't make sense. It would be better for you to promote someone from the PCMO. If there is no justification for you to upgrade the office because you have the expertise there in the office. Permanent Secretary, I'm beginning to understand where you're coming from, Mr. Tam. In the Public Works team, we do have a lot of officers. When they've ascended to certain positions, they would have accumulated a lot of experience in handling mega projects. Say, for instance, a chief engineer would stand a chance of being promoted one more rank. A principal government engineer may be working in the drainage services department. He may be responsible for some mega projects. By moving him over here, he would be in a position to handle the work. He would be sufficiently competent in the post. Dr. Ching Chung Tai, 5 minutes. Chairman, thank you. We are discussing this funding proposal from the Development Bureau to create a permanent post of principal government engineer to head the Project Strategy and Governance Office, or PSGO, and also to convert a supernumerary post into a permanent one. I am not the wiser having listened to members. Now, for the equation of the permanent post, a principal government engineer, I am wondering how we can make or let the PCMO fulfill better function, unless we are going to change the tendering mechanism. For mega projects, obviously there is a stage of advanced planning and supervision. Over the years, it is obvious that for the white elephant projects, by the time they reach the middle or late stage, they would begin to overspend. These officers are not scrutinizing the existing projects, but with mega projects in future, you would be in a position to intervene at an early stage and offer your advice. But if you don't change the tendering exercise, it would be hard for you to keep down the cost. You may only be able to offer some advice, like the XRL and the SCL. If you keep the same tendering and contracting system, you may have the PSGO, and you may be able to spot the problem. You're not the works department that is taking forward and implementing the project. You may be able to do more and offer more advice at the beginning stage. Why do you need to create the post? And why is it that you cannot tell us at this point in time, unless you change the tendering system, the office will not be able to make a blind bit of difference to the situation? Are you with me? Can you explain to us whether you are going to scrutinize the tendering system in the light of the experience that you've gained from the SCL and XRL? Permanent Secretary. Chairman, the PCMO can only be involved at the late stage of a project, and the PSGO will be involved all the way through in the whole life cycle of a project, from the creation of the project to all the way to the end. Like, for example, in the course of work, we do have the PSS, the project surveillance system. Now, this system is designed in such a way that the engineering team will get to grips with the possibility of overspending and also program delays, and that would enable the engineering team to have some to receive some alert, so that they can adopt certain measures to keep down the cost and also to minimize the cost overruns and also program delays. So we hope that through this PSGO, we will be in a position to offer these kind of tools to help the engineering team to monitor the situation.
Well, Chairman, let me cite a specific example. For instance, for the Shatin Central Line, with this PCMO, for instance, when there were a problem about the steel bars, and I remember the government at that time had to speak with the contractors, but then because of the agreement, they would. They have the power of not disclosing details to the government. So, what or how can the PCMO work under this circumstance? If they said that this is a confidentiality principle under the agreement, so even with the PCMO or the PSGO, there's nothing the government can do, right? Well, Chairman, was it Shatin Central Line as an example? The investigation panel is now working on the case, and I hope that with the report out, we will try to take a look and see how we could improve on it. Please turn on the mic. Yes, I'm talking about can the office intervene at the early stage? Because of this, the existing tendering or contracting system, there is nothing the government could do. I'm ruling out the possibility of corruption, etc. I'm just saying that in this Shatin Central Line, Hong Kong Station case, there was nothing that the government could do because the contractor just said that there was a confidentiality principle under the agreement. So even with the PSGO in place, then even with the principal government engineer in place, there is nothing he could do if the existing system is still in place. So there is a problem in the system. Secretary, how the system can be improved? Thank you, Chairman. The PSGO will have a project surveillance system, PSS, and with this system in place, the PSGO will be able to exercise more stringent monitoring of the project. Mr. Holden Chow, 5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. With the upgrading of the PCMO, well, of course, we hope that the monitoring of the public works projects would be improved and cost savings achieved. But if the current position is turned into a permanent post, then I have a question. I saw from the paper, para 8, stating that the office would be would report to the financial secretary, and it will remain under the establishment of the Development Bureau, WB. So if there is such an office that would monitor the various public works projects of the government, then should the head report directly to the CE instead of to the FS, to the Financial Secretary? That is, the head of the PSGO will then have more power to monitor and to vet the various public works projects. If he finds problems, then he can report directly to the chief executive. Will that be more effective in carrying out his responsibility? I wonder whether you have considered that. I'd like to hear your views. My second question is that if we want to monitor the public works projects more effectively, well, of course, at present we have a similar bodies. If the PSGO is to work effectively and will be able to have the power to scrutinize the public works projects at various stages, then I wonder whether the office should be like the ombudsman's office, or will be the head will be given such power to carry out its task. I don't know whether the administration has considered these issues. That is to empower the head of the PSGO and give it real power to supervise or to monitor the various public works projects. Thank you, Chairman. The PCMO has all along been under the Development Bureau of the Works branch of the Development Bureau. With it upgraded, we hope that we could enhance project delivery capability and cost effectiveness. And also uplift the performance of the public works projects. The office will be involved with the project at an early stage up till the end of the life cycle of the project. And there will be strategic measures in place to enhance the monitoring of the office of the projects. We would explore whether we could involve different technologies to enhance our supervision, and we would also exchange and also work closely with our counterparts overseas. And we find that this would be very much in line with the work of the Development Bureau, because if the office is put under the Development Bureau, then synergy could be achieved. If it is under different bureau or reporting to different bureau, then perhaps the work will not be as smooth. Drawing reference from other similar offices in other countries, for instance, in the UK and Singapore, we find that the arrangement is similar. The PSGO sometimes will look at the kind of policy issues of the various projects. So I think it is most appropriate for the office to be under the Development Bureau Works branch. And the head of the PSGO could also communicate with us, for instance, directly with me. Mr. Jihotik, Chairman, I have a suggestion. That is, the government should provide more information and also empower the LegCo. We have 70 members here. We could actually share your responsibility and then look more closely at the various public works projects for you. Well, Chairman, actually after approving the funding application, we actually very often do not know in great detail the design of the projects. And then even if we know, sometimes the project will change, the design will change during the course of the project. And after funding approval is given, we are no longer informed of the progress of the project or the changes in its design. So I have a suggestion for the administration. If you want to have a close monitoring of the various projects, perhaps you could empower us to do it. We have expertise in the council, in the LegCo. We could help you out. Well, I have a question for you now. Secretary, could you perhaps tell me with these posts and also with the addition of 12 staff under the team, what would be the costs or the budget for the PSGO, and how many people will be under the PSGO? I would defer the question to my colleague. Thank you, Chair. In the paper, para 28 already sets out the structure of the PSGO. In the PCMO, there are 7 existing posts, and we are proposing to create 12 additional posts. So altogether, there will be 21 posts in the PSGO. And on para 30, this is the cost of the PSGO. So it is will be around 16.5 million annually. Para 32, right? Yes, every year it will be around $16.5 million. That include salaries and staff on cost. We are trying to identify most effective way to carry out the task. That is, we hope that we can find the right person with the right expertise. Well, has the administration considered whether you could hire perhaps a consultancy firm with this $16.5 million per year? You could actually engage a consultancy firm with the relevant expertise to monitor these projects for you. I remember I heard a colleague talking about the Queen Mary Hospital Block K. You just gave them some design advice, and then they have been able to save up some consultancy cost. So would you consider perhaps engaging external consultancy firm to carry out this task instead of creating established post to hire people and establish a office? Well, the PSGO will be working out strategies for long-term development and to uplift the performance of public works projects. We would also have an academy to train the people. And through these training, we will be able to uplift the awareness of the colleagues in risk of cost overruns, and we will also sharpen their skills in project delivery, and also we will lead strategic development to enhance cost effectiveness. We would also work out relevant standards and guidelines and see how we could streamline our work process and also push through the various projects in a more effective manner. So these are the works that PSGO will have to do. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, right. You said that there would be academy and also training center to train the staff. I think it's reasonable. But then after that, you talk about the function and the responsibility of the PSGO. I don't know why this must be done in-house. You have not been able to explain why we can't outsource these areas of work. Yes, I agree that some of them could be outsourced. Maybe, yes, some of the the works could be outsourced. But then in making strategic strategies for development, I think this must be done in-house. Mr. Low Kwok, thank you, Chair. Public works projects are very often very complex, and in Hong Kong there are different kinds of public works projects that are being implemented, and it involves different government offices and departments. So I think the Secretary should explain more clearly how this PSGO could enhance performance. Would it be responsible for working out strategies or stepping up with supervision or monitoring of the public works projects? Because if it's mainly for supervision, then I think there are already government departments that are supervising the various projects, and will there be overlap? And also the tendering mechanism of the government is quite controversial. Actually, the industry has a lot of criticism about it. Well, over the years, of course, it has been improved. It's not just the lower tender bid will be able to get the projects. Now there is different categories or different consideration, for instance, for innovation, etc. This is good. But all in all, we find that very often the system is more or less the same.
And the price would be given a pretty high weighting, and the construction industry is quite worried that it may cause cutthroat competition. And in some cases, you drop the lowest bidder. In other cases, you don't. So how do you proceed in this regard, and what improvement can we expect? So there are two parts to my question. Thank you. Mr. Lam. Chairman, project strategy and governance go in tandem. By strategy, we mean that we will come up with some strategies to uplift the performance of the projects. One of the ways is to enhance the ability on the part of the civil servants to control the cost. And we have the Center of Excellence for Major Project Leaders. Over the summer, a batch of colleagues have been sent to Oxford to complete a course. Other than Oxford training, they also need to attend classes and tutorials, and they also need to conduct some case studies. We hope that through this kind of training, the project leaders would be in a better position to handle the project. Their abilities and their capabilities would be enhanced. The member asked about the tendering system. Now, other than the technical aspect, we do have two envelopes covering the technical and the financial aspects. 40% go to technical and 6% go to financial. The member asked if two bidders have equal technical aspect, then we would go for the lower bid. I think the member is oversimplifying the situation. If a bid fails, then we will not open the envelope at all. If someone scores a pass, we need to have the score to be at particular level. So we feel that this is a feasible methodology. We have to evolve with times with regard to public work projects. So in terms of tendering exercise, is there any room for further enhancement? We are prepared to scrutinize that accordingly. Mr. Wuchiwai, 5 minutes. We are discussing the PSGO. It is important for the office to control the costs. Mr. Permanent Secretary, with regard to cost control for public works projects, there are 3 elements. First, we have to sustain the no-frills culture across different projects. We have to make sure that we're going to achieve good cost effectiveness. Second, there has to be good enough confidence level. Should it be 90%, 95%, or 100%? There would be massive variation at different level of percentages. Can we have these elements across different departments? The PSGO can come up with the criteria and inculcate the culture in different departments. Permanent Secretary, I'm not sure whether you agree with me on that. This is a fundamental issue that you have to do. Second, according to what you said, Permanent Secretary, the PSGO will be stepping in at a very early stage of a project, and the office will be offering advice. If this is the case, then the office will be overwhelmed with a lot of work because we see a number of projects per year, and they may not be able to cope, and we are imposing excessive demand on this office. Third, will the staff members in the PSGO be subject to transfer? It would be tantamount to more like akin to the audit department, and this is a kind of department that would not be popular with the departments. Will the staff members be subject to transfer? That the staff members may need to contend with the prospect of being transferred to other departments, and will you have the staff members occupying the posts on a long-term basis? So how will the PSGO be carrying out the work of cost control? And also, will the PSGO's advice be overridden? And who can override their decision? First, confidence level, no frills. It is important to build up the culture. If we can do more to ramp up the training, Mr. Wu, what can you do? Like the Center of Excellence, there will be lessons, there will be classes attended by the project leaders. We can take full advantage of the advanced experience in overseas jurisdictions, and we hope that we can let the culture take root in the day-to-day work. Second, you mentioned early intervention and the fact that the office will be overwhelmed. Now, what we're trying to do is to develop certain tools, like the surveillance system that I referred to. The PSGO is devising these tools for the project leaders. And if they can monitor the situation, or in fact, every so often we will be exchanging ideas with the project departments to ascertain how well they are coping in terms of cost control. The office doesn't have a large staff complement. It cannot substitute the day-to-day work of the project departments. As to transfer, the office will be tendering professional advice, and I cannot see how these would have any implications on the transfer of officers. Turn up the mic for Mr. Wu, please. I've got a fourth question. Who can override the decision? Mr. Lam. As I said, there are scenarios, there are situations that people don't see eye to eye, and if there are different views, the issue will be coming back to me, and I will sit them down and discuss it. Mr. Alvin Young, from 2016, statistically, since the inception of the office to now, we have 30 projects to the tune of $260 billion. You don't have a large office. Will you be able to cope? It seems to me that the PCMO is under tremendous workload. So is the PCMO able to cope? Permanent Secretary, from 2016 through to 2018, for about 3 years, each year we have something like 30-40 projects to scrutinize, and the PCMO would be ascertaining whether the cost would be at a reasonable level. The PCMO had a small staff complement, so we could only step in at the late stage of the design, and we would be discussing with the department regarding the cost. It's just like a snapshot of the project. With the creation of the PSGO, we hope that we can develop more tools for the public works departments to carry out the monitoring from the inception of the project. If they have any question about the costing, they can come up with some alert system, so that would keep the staff on their toes, and they would then be able to deal with the situation. So from 2016 to 2018, we cover something like 40 projects. Mr. Young, in answer to Mr. Wu, you said that Mr. Wu said that if there are conflicts between the PSGO and the project team, the issue will be ending up on the lap of the permanent secretary. And the permanent secretary will have the final say. Is that the case? Mr. Lam, we're all professionals. We are offering our advice in a frank and open manner, and the project leader will also let us know their perspective, and then we try to work together to optimize the project. In any project at different levels, it would be a common occurrence. Mr. Young, well, you are being frank and open. I'm asking about the system. If there are conflicts occurring, will this be handled by the permanent secretary? Yes, if they cannot handle the conflicts, I would be handling them. Mr. Young, taking this to the extreme, this PSGO will be scrutinizing the project from the beginning to the end. And it may not be able to handle certain conflicts on the spot, and that the issue will go back to the permanent secretary. Is that right? In theory, yes, but since I've become the permanent secretary, I've never come across a situation like this. Mr. Young, so you're happy with the situation? I took up the post in October 2018, and so far, so good. We managed to keep on top of the situation. It is about time to end the meeting. I have the authority to extend the meeting by 15 minutes. I have Ms. Tanya Chan and also Mr. Eddie Chu. Should we carry on? Should we endorse the paper today? Mr. Chu, Chairman, they haven't given me a reply in writing. Do you have a lot of questions? Ms. Tanya Chan, Chairman, you heard a moment ago that they're going to supplement some papers in writing. The administration has been very efficient, and they would make available the reply as soon as we put the question. And we may not be asking terribly complicated questions. I hope that we will be given time to follow up on some of the issues next time. They talked about the billions and billions of dollars worth of projects, and the paper is out of date, and we'd like to be brought up to date, and we can read up on the paper and follow up on the issues. We spent about 2 hours here, and we can follow up a bit next meeting. So meeting adjourned.